We ready?
Yes, and we are live. Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome to Journey to Bliss. And we have a special guest here tonight. As you can see, we have our brother Lester Loving here, and we have our brother Yusiko. And we're going to be talking about the DNA connection to our spiritual gifts. Brothers and sisters, please get your notebooks, please get your pens, or you could just watch the video again just to make sure you can connect what we're speaking about, okay? Yusiko, you want to introduce yourself, and then we can let Lester, he's going to go get his notes because Lester has been preparing for the past couple of weeks for this show tonight, guys. So please pay attention and adhere to whatever the brother's saying. Please introduce yourself.
All right, but everybody know me. I'm Yusiko. I used to be the owner and part host of the Ring and Stone Network back in the day. And I still have a live YouTube Ring and Stone Network. And so Bob and Lester and I were talking, and he channeled his mother, and we were discussing the duality and how to prepare herself for the future and how we should look. And his mother discussed with us about how to prepare herself for the future. And out of that, what evolved was how do we get ourselves prepared spiritually, which meant understanding your spiritual gift, how it works, and maybe possibly the origin of your spiritual gift, because that's important too. Because I think there's some myths about where our spiritual gifts come from. So go ahead, brother Lester, introduce yourself, and then we'll get off into the bill.
Hi.
That's it?
I've been studying for a while, and I guess I'll pass on some things, and you'll give me some things in exchange.
Cool. Baba Lester deals with pyramids, Oregon energy, and he's been a great teacher because he helps to understand metaphysics into the science. And that becomes important, so we won't always think that the things that's happening to us are some hokey pokey thing like they try to teach us on TV, or something that we can just take for granted. So that's the reason why we're doing the show. So I want to start here, and this is the International Bible Version, 1 Corinthians chapter 12. It says, now about the gifts of the Spirit, brothers and sisters, I don't want you to be uninformed. You know that when you are pagans, somehow or another you were influenced and led astray to mute idols. Y'all hear background noise? Is it mine?
Yeah, hold on.
My mic is muted, so I wasn't sure. Did you still hear it? Oh, that's Lester's mic. Okay. All right, go ahead. Were you reading from the Bible?
Yeah, I got to read from the Bible because and in verse 3 it says, therefore I want you to know that no one who is speaking by the Spirit of God says Jesus was cursed, or no one that can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of workings, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. Now, to each one of the manifestations of the Spirit is given by the common good. To one, there is given the spirit of message of wisdom, to another, the message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit, to another, faith by the same Spirit, to another, gifts of healing by the one Spirit. Verse 10, to another, miracles, powers, to another, prophecy, to another, distinguish between gifts, to another, speaking in different kinds of tongues, and to still another, the interpretation of tongues. All of these are the work of one of the same Spirit, and he distributes them to each other as he determines. So my first question is, do you believe that this God gives us the spiritual gifts, or do they manifest via the DNA?
Lester, that question's for you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, what do you think about? In order for me to answer that question, where does the role of the soul come in?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Yes, you.
The role of the soul, in some ways, which is the Kai, is manifested through the Great Spirit, right? Mm-hmm. And so it comes down into the body at some point. I don't know if nobody even knows what time that spirit comes into the body. Or,
oh yeah, we do.
You do. Okay. And the soul comes with a vague message of what you're predestined to do when you come onto the planet, or what you should give and that comes through the soul. Your DNA is, and that what I'm getting at is, to me, I think it's a myth when biblically they teach you that God gives you the gift. I believe that they come through the DNA and the mitochondrial DNA, and they're kind of controlled by the mating of your mother and father, what gifts you're going to get, right? And so that's what I believe. But I wanted to start it with the biblical thing because, the biblical thing always says that in some way you specifically get your gifts through God, but not necessarily. They never mention the DNA, like that. So it wasn't to put you on the spot. It was just a lead in so we could go into the DNA. You know what I mean? And or we can start, because I had another question, was what is the junk DNA? And how thank you.
That's a better place to start. Okay. That is a much better place to start.
Let's go.
Okay. We a lot of people talk to me about how the vibratory rate of this language that we use, and that there are so many other languages that have a greater vibratory rate. And we know scientifically that just the curvature of the alphabet or the pictographs that you're using, the less linear and the more curvilinear they are, the more information and you can put into the language, and the more energy we can get out of that particular language. So when you say the word junk, the first thing in this particular case is the arrogance of the scientific community to assume that there is junk. That's a shorthand for whenever they can't figure something out and therefore assign no purpose to it. From the long term or overarching perspective of your question, part of the soul's mission can be awakened through the DNA, depending on the life path or the life decisions that we make. But in general, it's more localized than that. In other words, our direct ancestors and our direct environment evoke the gifts that we're here to do. At any time, though, we can wake up to those bigger gifts, which in the Bible they call talents. And those we carry from lifetime to lifetime, whether we activate them or not.
So we're not, let's say like with me, my mother had visions, my daddy was clairaudience. So you said when they mixed, then I could have either one of them because that, you know what I mean? But does that limit me?
Well, first of all, okay, hold on. Let's back up here. Okay.
That's where we're trying to go.
We've got two different systems going on at the same time, called the human body. We have the sympathetic nervous system, and then we have the parasympathetic nervous system. And so, what you're talking about is the combination, the lottery of the genes between two different people, and what those combinations would be like. What can be evoked from that person. That's one expression. That's from the sympathetic nervous system.
Could you define the sympathetic nervous system?
That's what we can. That's the information we take in with the equipment that we have from the five senses. So the things we smell, we hear, we taste, we vibrationally feel, through the ground and through sound. And so what I'm saying is the genes or the possibilities between the two different people coming together, that would be expressed in the DNA. On the other hand, there's the parasympathetic nervous system, which means that the parasympathetic nervous system rules over anything that is in, or the scientific term they use is non-local reality. That is the stuff, anything that we cannot sense with our immediate equipment, and that could be something across time, across lifetimes. We pick up on this information all the time. And so what I'm trying to say is that when the two different people get together in the baby making act, the first thing that goes out is that the energy of the signal from those two different beings go out to the edge of the universe, and they draw back, bringing those talents and abilities to the embryo or the being that's about to be expressed. So that's already happened. We're just not aware of it. I mean, back in the day, everybody, people learned how to recognize these abilities. I mean, you before you even met the person, you knew they were coming, and you knew what you were going to bring down together, or you had a sense of what those parameters are. It's a different time and a different epoch and a different, as we would say, dispensation. So we're doing it in a different way.
Let's say, like, I met a sister, she did out of body, and I was like, girl, let's have this baby so our baby could do out of body. Is that possible? You know what I mean? Because
when you say out of body, what do you mean?
Like she could travel, and we got to discuss what that is.
Sure. What do you mean? What do you mean possible? That happens. Look, that happens all the time. We just.
Yes.
Well, let me put it to this way, okay? Because I'm supposed to be the science guy, and both the Bible and the Book of the Dead and all these other great books have a tremendous amount of science in them. That's why I'm here, is because people want to say it's all, some deep, being that's beyond understanding. It's out there, and I'm like, Negro, it's right here. It's downtown. Park your car. So. We travel. Okay, everything is according to communication and agreement. One of the things that takes time in this dimension is that we have to find people who are willing to uh, take the time to agree upon something. It doesn't mean that we have to agree upon the same political or scientific thing, but we agree to communicate. We agree to stick with it and to draw stuff together and to possibly uplift each other. So um, what I'm saying is that we leave the body and we go back to home base approximately 70 trillion times a second.
Mm.
Okay, and there's a little part in the brain that activates that. So that's not a metaphysical thing. It happens. We're just not conscious of that traveling back to the. And once again, traveling is an inappropriate way to describe it. Okay, traveling means waves. It means getting to the stagecoach. You got bumps. You got air turbulence on the plane. No, we're talking about a movement uh, of like vibration called resonance, where we're here and then we're instantly there. So that's the way we can go back and forth 70 trillion times a second.
Mm.
So, in other words, to answer your more immediate question, we as individuals and as individual spirits or entities, we resonate with certain things long term, stuff that we can't possibly hear. It's beyond our lifetime. But at the same time, that's an operating principle that we've been guided by from the very beginning, from before the beginning of time.
So is there, because part of our subject is enhancement. So with that resonance, is there a frequency where we can maybe tap into it and become more cognizant of it so we can elevate ourselves? Just
Well, see, once again, while people are so busy talking about the comedic understanding of the afterlife, um, they are not catching up on the fact that the average person in ancient Egypt, throughout the 12,000 years of their existence, the average person spent X amount of time every day trying to hear and remember the vibration, or what they call the the cosmic sound that brought them or their soul into existence.
Yeah.
And as long as you were doing that work, then everything else was, um, downhill. But it was a necessary exercise that now uh, we've been convinced not to take on those type of understandings. But that's, in other words, it's easier to hear your cosmic name if you're actually practicing to hear it.
okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, a lot of us are, busy with work and life and doing all this stuff. So, if
Okay.
what you're saying is when we take time to just sit.
Right. Well, see, once again, all things are included. You know. Um, okay. Let me give you a because I'm trying not to be metaphysical. Trying to give you concrete. Before we had lighting, things that we had lights at night. Okay. People would go to bed after the sun went down. Now, of course, they had some degrees of lights. They had lamps and other things, but people would go to bed. They didn't have the TV with the blue light on it around the edge to keep them awake. They didn't have all these other things, and people would wake up between 3 and 4:30. They wouldn't just wake up and roll over. We become conscious after every time we go through the dream cycle for a minute. But I mean, they actually wake up, get chores done, get their prayers done, do a whole bunch of stuff. Now, I read about this because, my people told me about this from back in the day before we had electricity. But then I started reading about it all over the world. And what I found out, is that but those people who know me know that my big thing is all about having more and more and more negative ions. The energy connection between us surrounding ourselves with negative ions is very important. And what I learned is that 3 o'clock in the morning is when the earth is distributing the most negative ions to us. So naturally, people will be getting up and being in that ion bath. You got nature waters the flowers and the plants at that time called the dew. So, if in other words, what I'm long-windedly saying, we've got to also learn to get back into the rhythms that nature has. And it'll be easier for us to get all these other things done. Yes, we have life, but without understanding who we are, that's a struggle.
Can you give me a relationship between negative ions and some of the spiritual gifts so that we know it's like, okay, you wake up 3 o'clock, let's resonate.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, let's talk about the physical relationship of negative and positive ions.
Sure.
Okay, negative and positive ions. The negative and positive are electrical charges, so they're not judgments. Not one's not good, one's not bad. Okay, the fact that when we're outdoors, when we're in the waterfalls and the rain and the ocean and the dew, that's moving water that's above ground. That's 70% negative ions to 30% positive ions. We digest our food better. We don't we calm down. We don't resort immediately to violence. It breaks up smoke, dust, and pollen. It will literally break up some of the pollutants that we breathe in. Uh, and of course the metaphysical aspects of it. And of course, like I said, being outdoors, we have the 70-30 we need. When we come indoors to most of these environments that we live in, it's 30-70. We don't even have 50% of what we need. And where the metaphysical aspect comes in is the fact that the pineal gland, it does not matter how much melanin you have per square inch. Okay. In other words, the darker, but you got to have 70% negative ions in order for the pineal gland to be fully functional. It's also true that at 70% negative ions, most diseases cannot function in the human body, as well as all the gifts you talked about before, the clairaudience, the clairvoyance, the all the different super awarenesses that those talents that we have. Those are not that you wouldn't have to go to the school and become an X person. It would be as innate as the bird flying out of the nest the first time.
Powerful, powerful.
Yes.
But it is there. It's just not manufactured, don't you think? There's a lot of people that's gifted. I think it's part of the whole junk DNA, but it's not activated or.
Well, no.
Some
Once again,
others.
if there are many different ways we can talk about the same thing, but if we're discussing ionization, from the time that you and I were born, okay, our society and our lifestyle has taken more and more positive ionization, not just the materials that we use, not just the lighting that we have, not just the TV and now the computer and the copying machine and the Wi-Fi and all that, the actual building materials that we have, the fact that the airplanes are dropping all kinds of chemicals, out of it. And I'm not even talking about chemtrails. I'm just talking about the regular jet fuel. The fact that the fact that we take here's a pollutant that we usually don't even think about: sound. You take your phone and just press record on your phone for 5 minutes, and then wait until the nighttime and listen back to it. Listen to how many other sounds are surrounding us all the time now. We don't as you were saying before, we don't get a chance to hear anything, and we don't give ourselves a chance to hear anything. Both the natural sounds that are out there and the supernatural, or what you would call metaphysical energies that are trying to communicate with us and through us. On the other hand, you know, it 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 takes everything. Everything takes practice. Okay, and therefore, we, as we were talking off the mic before, one of the things that we have to deal with is making a commitment.
Right.
Okay, because our society, at least the trimmings of our society right now, deals with dopamine reward. Everybody wants that like, they want that hit, they want that instant reward, and then the next one and the next one. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we have to also balance that out with long daily goals and monthly goals and longer term goals.
Right.
And the things what most people call metaphysical, those are goals that we have to. They're called metaphysical because they're not readily seen up front. It's our vision of it happening. It's our intuitive magnetism being drawn to that, to living in a world that we feel that happen.
So is the commitment threefold? I mean, because you gotta make a commitment to what you predestined to be. You got to make a commitment to practice, right? And then you got to make a commitment to your atmosphere, which is where you live, your home, blah blah blah. Could it ever become a time where you could just become greater than all the negatives and just be?
Well, okay. Now you're trying to trick. Now you're trying to trick me with quantum physics.
No, I
okay.
tried with the Bible.
Okay. That's what's known as the uncertainty principle. Schrodinger's cat. If you know what I'm talking about. The man said, if you got the cat, and then you put it inside the box or whatever, and then you look inside the box. One reality, the cat's there, and the other reality, the cat's not there. The cat's alive or not alive. Okay. And the point of the whole uncertainty principle is not whether the cat is alive or not. It's the idea that by us looking at it, we change the variable of the situation. That's the whole point. So, in other words, we have to keep looking at the situation, and eventually, I don't mean looking with our eyes necessarily. I mean, even the metaphor of looking forward to that old ship falling down, looking forward to the new stuff coming. Whatever it is, we are in fact creating that reality, and we're creating it now, not in the future. So, in other words, it's both a commitment to all the things you said, but it's also a commitment in the way I'm saying it. It's a commitment to right now, short term, and then long term. That's another commitment. Just knowing that whatever I'm doing now, or I think it might change. I might stop eating certain things as I get older. I might take on other things, but it's still that commitment to be myself and see these changes in the world. So I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but but at the same time, there are guideposts. There are things that give us that aha moment, what most people call synchronicity, or like you hear a word that you've never heard before, and then in the next day you see it 4 or 5 different places. Well, those are signposts saying you're going in the right direction. Keep it up.
I got you. So I want to go back because it's people asking questions. And
okay.
So we got. Remember when we did tools for the eclipse? So we got to give them some tools because I think they came here to understand like their particular gift and how they connect to it. So, family, first of all, one thing he's saying is basically you can change the environment of my house that's going to enhance your gift by adding negative ions, which could be just getting some pine needles and putting them in some water and keeping them around the house. What's another one? And then we want to look at like the individual gifts and how they can help connect with the individual gifts. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. Well, once again, I'm only going by what you've already put out there, which is from the DNA standpoint. That's what I'm saying. That a lot of this stuff is right in front of us. It's not like in front of us that we can't see it. If we come from a background where our people are musical, um, that might be the direction. At the same time, like we were saying before, there's always the soul urge. There's always the soul needing to express itself or here for a reason. So in other words, I might come from a background where all my people, my aunts, my uncle, my younger brothers, they're all into music. Okay, they all play instruments. They all, they got their studios. They're doing all that stuff. But my guides, and I don't mean like just angels. I mean my guidance. It just keeps directing me into this law thing, right? And so every day I'm praying. I'm like, oh, universe, show me what I'm supposed to do. I know everybody else is into music. And then finally it dawns on me one day that every one of these people need legal representation. And just by being into the law, I'm still honoring that DNA. I'm still involved with the music.
Okay.
So in other words, it's our job to look for what it is, what our talents are, and then to find the people that will help us to sustain that or to make it better. But it's already there. The seeds have already, like you said before, the seeds haven't just been planted; they've been sprouting. They may have had better or not as great conditions to grow in, but they're already. I mean, they're already there.
I got you. Let's take one for instance. Let's say Claireaudio.
Okay.
How can I mix it?
I'm sorry.
Let's look at.
I just didn't hear the whole question. Just
Claireaudio. How can I enhance it or learn to connect with it? Are there some things I could do to help with being Claireaudio?
Well, see, once again, everybody wants me to tell them all this metaphysical stuff, but I am from the metaphysical world. What I mean by that is, the first thing I do when I'm working on any subject is I go to the dictionary so I can find out where it comes from. Not the meaning now. Where did that concept and where did that thing originally come from? And then from there, like the concept, who are the people that came up with the idea that you can hear stuff beyond your audible range? And then I look and I investigate what is the audible range and what is outside of the audible range. Are there any animals that can hear? Do we know what the frequency are for angels or other beings, or the frequency for different planets? Yes. How is it? Is it possible? Not just is it possible? How is it possible to build a sound telescope so I can either receive or hear? There's a whole bunch of homework we can do just from that one thing. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm always saying is people keep looking for these answers, and it's like the answers in the physical. It's the metaphysical is what's guiding us through the physicality.
Right.
My mother every day I would, I'd ask her, Mom, what's my mission? Because she would just spontaneously, we'd be on the subway, and she just spontaneously start talking to people, and telling them what they're going to do and all this. So every day I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And my mother would say, let's do this math problem. And I'm like, man, problem. You told that other guy he was supposed to, go off to sea and use his nautical skills. You told that woman she was supposed to start her own baking company. She's like, no, let's add up these license plates on these cars. Okay, so boom. Fast forward 10 years later, now I'm trying to build my first pyramid. And the book that I had, it didn't have the mathematics for the size pyramid I wanted. It only had the actual numbers of the Great Pyramid. And so I sat down with the pencil and I said 9,542 over 3,448, blah, blah, blah. And I said, wait a minute. She's been telling me the answer the whole time. It's the math. That's what I'm saying. It's always right here in front of us. Okay, the antennas. Where are the antennas? The antennas are at the end of each hair. Not just the hair on our head, but the hair over here, all this other stuff. Okay, the antenna for the bird is at the end of the feather. The end of the, for the fish is the tip of the scale, of each scale. That's where we get into the cosmic reinforcement of what we're here to do. Not just like, oh, I'm waiting for this message. The message is constantly coming to us. As a matter of fact, as the sister would say, the message is what keeps us informed. If we weren't getting those messages, we would not be in this form. Okay.
So I want to say, so we have some people. It appears like some people are getting the message while others are completely disconnected.
Okay.
And so those people that are getting the message, they're sort of connecting with their soul purpose. And those who are not getting the message, it appears to be that they're sort of lost in a loop or sort of spiraling.
Okay.
So at some point, they have to realize that everyone can access these spiritual gifts because it's in everyone's DNA.
Well, see, once again, if we're talking from a quantum physics standpoint, okay, let's go back to the uncertainty principle. Okay. Western science tells us that at any given time, only 7% of the population is going through cognitive functioning. In other words, that they're thinking, they're processing thoughts. Okay. And you've got 7% out of 100. 7 out of 100 are thinking.
Right.
Okay. 1.5 are absolutely working for maintaining the system. 1.5% are working to disassemble this system or any system that's not balanced. You got 4% left over. What does that mean? It means that, to put it in the Western way, the ratio of change is between 1 and 1.5%. You're never going to have a populace that is even 50% awake. The reason for that is because the powers that be structure it that way. And they're getting paid just enough and getting enough reward to ignore the obvious. Okay. However, what we are saying is it's up to those 4% of the population to see their own visions and to keep going when the other part of the population is not waking up yet.
Okay. I got you.
We want to. It's a great movie. It's a great, like TV series that we bust through, and we have that ray gun, and we snap it, and everybody wakes up, and suddenly we're tearing down the White House, and that's a great, great thing. Okay, but I ain't got enough popcorn to stick through that 18-year movie.
Now, I thank you for that, because I'm feeling like, is it me? Am I going crazy? Or am I just a dreamer to think that at least 25% of the population could get it together? And you're right. It's probably about 4%. And it's unfortunate, because it's sort of like the responsibility or the burden, I guess, it falls on the 4%.
Well, look, okay, forget that. Okay, there's this concept that's been out here for about 20 years now, and it's not just a concept. We're getting more and more proof of it, and the thing about science, the thing about science that people get a misleading idea is they think science has the answers. Science is not about answers. Science is about getting enough enthusiasm to keep investigating. And so what I mean, what I mean by that is, we have this wonderful thing that we've been studying for a while, and it's called emergent behavior. And the best, simplest example I can give you is that when it's time for one of the queens inside of the beehive, or the queen herself, if it's time for the queen to move to a new location, okay, then they send out scouts to find, to look to see what's the best, situation, where should we move? And the scouts come back and they each do the bee dance, telling them the location and where it is. And so after each of the bees, there's only like 2 or 3 scouts because they've gone 2 or 3 different places. And so the bees start to vote. And so 1% of the bees start to go with one scout. And then 1% of the bees start to go with the second scout. And 1% of the beehive goes with the third scout. And like that, the voting is over. And they all know what the proper thing is, and they fly out of the nest to go to the location. Emergent behavior. And that's what we're also talking about is, it didn't take 50% of the beehive to go out and find a location. Right. It was only 3 scouts. And as soon as they came back and gave the information, that greater intelligence came in and they knew what the answer was.
I got you. Okay, so you don't need that many to activate.
No, it never. It rarely in history do you get all that. That's Hollywood. That's that Disney stuff I grew up on.
Yes, yes. So this explains why people like Malcolm X would have so many people up underneath him, where he had a lot of power over them, because he was sort of that bee that that went out and found things and brought it back for the people to build and to connect and to create and so forth. Is that the best example? That's the only thing I can think of.
No. Once again, I go by, as I said, in guideposts. Okay, that's an excellent example. That is an excellent example. And you know how I know that? Because every Saturday I would have to get on the train in Brooklyn and go all the way through Manhattan, all the way up to 125th Street, where my dance studio was, right there across the street from the phone company. People that from Harlem, they know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm not naming no names, but that was an established place for decades. And I came out the train a couple of times, and there was this gentleman standing there on a soapbox, completely clean and dignified. And somebody would stop and say, "Excuse me, minister, but could you tell us about how we got into the situation in Venezuela? I hear they're doing such and such." And he said, "Well, We first have to start back in 1948. And he would go through a 25-minute dissertation just to educate people about the answer he was going to give.
Yes.
And of course, that was Brother Malcolm. And as soon as he was about to answer the question that the woman walked by and said, "You better get to church, young man." Okay, so you know what I'm saying? I saw both. I saw all of it. That's that. It ain't gonna be no 100%. It ain't gonna be no 50%. You know, like everyone think, oh yeah, everyone's swept away by Malcolm. No, that's not how it works. You're right. He was an inspirational thing, but people were so dug into their own stuff. You know, invested. Yes. So it takes, as I said, seeing beyond them for what's good for them. Not in terms of knowing what's good for them, but knowing the stuff that we are doing now is not good for us. That's for sure.
Right. Yes.
And also too, I mean, we all talk this revolutionary stuff, but how often do we practice actually being somebody telling us to take charge, and we actually believe it and go, and there's always going to be resistance because we haven't been prepared for that.
That's right. We're so far behind in terms of preparing our community for, let's say, some type of emergency, preparing our communities for, building their own financial independence. Like, we're so far behind that I don't even think many of us see it.
No.
So, yeah.
And also, see, we tend to, we tend to buy into visually the narrative that we're given. And so, even though, well, let me put it to you in a positive way. Okay. There was a place right up Times Square, right on 42nd Street. And it was an international newspaper magazine place. And once a week I would go there and I would pick up this newspaper, and this newspaper was only 20 pages, like the size of the New York Times, but 20 pages. And the thing that made this newspaper, the reason why I went on the train for an hour to go get this newspaper is that every story was a story about something positive that was happening in the world.
Ooh, you talking Reverend Ike talk now.
I don't believe in black power. I don't believe in white power. Just believe in that green power. That's right. Okay. And so I could not finish. I could never get past the middle of the newspaper in one reading, because not only was all this stuff happening around the world, but it also made me realize how much the newspaper itself was set up. Like, you had one or two positive stories surrounded by all this negative stuff. So naturally, you get the impression that all this negative stuff is happening in the world. And so a lot of that had to do with not the newspaper, but where am I placing my consciousness and awareness? I have to take responsibility to see more positive things, or to go and help other people so that we can both see positive things happening in the world.
Yes, I agree with you. There is a saying that I was listening to with Reverend Ike when he was saying, don't look at the news. He's like, look at the good news. He said, look at what all the people making money, listen to all the great stories, all the vacations. And he was like, resonate with that.
That's right. That's right.
Help you raise your frequency to where you need to be and keep you in a positive light.
Oh, yes. Oh yes, look, you know, he's another one of those people that, people would make fun of him, but he always managed to have his own TV shows and be out there in the public, get his message across. So, if you don't like it, do your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides, there's not that much to not like.
I agree. I agree.
Oh yes, okay, so um okay, the when I talk about making a commitment, okay, I know that a lot of people, because a lot of people talk to me and they're like, well, you know, I don't have the time to follow all this politics. It's a lot of work to, track all these different changes in the status of the food. Oh, the medical industry is messed up, and we dying from this, and people are taking, all kind, there's all kinds of stuff out here that needs help. And at the same time, when I look at, for example, who are my neighbors? Okay. And naturally, I think about the people directly on my block and, the people across the street and whatnot. But then I'm like, wait a minute. A lot of those people, they, you know, they've come here recently. They're gonna move out. They're not gonna be for the longevity. You know. So I had to rethink about that. I'm like, so who are my other neighbors? And I started to realize that the raccoon family that comes every night, those are my neighbors. They're gonna be here. Okay. The trees are my neighbors. Okay. They're gonna be here after the whole block has moved out or died out. So what I'm saying is when I say make a commitment, I mean make a commitment, not in the sense of I'm going to study karate or I'm going to study politics. I'm going to make a commitment to have a conversation with my neighbors. And that means, for me, what that means is going outside and looking at the stars for 10 minutes every day. And looking for the evidence of the other animals around, seeing what I can leave for them or, build a hummingbird house or whatnot. What can I do to water the plants or the trees in the summertime? Because people water their plants, but what about the trees on the street?
Right.
They're cooling us off. They're doing all kinds of stuff. So I'm just saying, there's a whole bunch that I can commit to. It's not just a political thing or having the right type of crystal. That's good too.
Yes, I agree. I was with one of my teachers last year, and she was saying how people don't even take the time to smell the flowers anymore. We don't even notice the colors of the birds or
That's
the bees.
right. That's what I'm talking about. Right.
So you're right.
No, look, we don't even. There was a what they call it, a 4-leaf, there were 3-leaf clovers. There was some patch of clovers that was growing in my driveway, and so I was gonna pull them up because that's what they pay me to do. Make everything nice and tidy. And I went to reach for them, and I realized that they're really, really tiny, but they had a yellow flower instead of the normal white flower. And I was like, oh my God. And so I took a spoon and dug it up and put it in a little pot, and it never grew to be big. Apparently that was just a tiny little clover thing, but it was just paying attention, just looking at this thing and it had the brightest yellow little flower. I mean, the hummingbird, The hummingbird flies across the what do they call it?
Gulf
The
of
Gulf of
Mexico.
Mexico. Right. In a day, 600 miles. That's a big trek for something that small, but it makes that commitment. And not just in the sense of, oh yeah, I'm gonna fly today. It has to bulk up for weeks, eating certain type of fuels, and getting itself ready. Because it can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's over the middle of the water,
That's right.
there you go, in like Flint. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I got you.
Yeah. So I wanted to pivot a little bit. There
Okay.
was when I was in school, when I was younger, there
Uh-huh.
was this agency that would come and test the children. And I was speaking to Yusiko about this before the show started. And the test was a hearing test. They had to put certain blocks in the squares and the circles, and then they had the eye test. And based on these tests, they would say the children, based on the results of the test, they would say the children were gifted. And then they were trying to put the children in gifted programs. Did you ever hear about this?
Yes, of course I did. Uh-huh.
I never heard about this until it didn't jog my memory until someone mentioned it, because there's a certain amount of years, and there were certain areas or neighborhoods that they were targeting. And so I assumed it was other cultures. I didn't resonate with the idea that it was a lot of children that looked like us that were involved in these tests.
Well, once again, it was a. I laugh because it wasn't. Not only did I participate in this mess, but as I became as I became an adult, I studied this movement greatly, and which is to say that as is always, it had a twofold agenda. First thing that it was trying to do was, in fact, they're not looking for intelligent or gifted young people. You got an abundance of them in that classroom.
Mm-hmm.
What they're looking for was the students that were intellectually gifted, but would also go along with the system.
Woo!
At the same time, you're also looking for the young people that are intellectually gifted and were already part of that 1.5% system that ain't never gonna go for the system.
Yes.
Okay, so and and, and so they set it up that way, and at the same time, the reason they set it up that way is because from the 1800s, they've known that when a young person walks into the first grade, 90% of them are at the genius level, and you have to teach them out of that in 12 years.
Yes, there. I remember the person telling me that it was something about because the children were so young,
Right.
that
Let's
it
see.
was
Let's see.
difficult.
Okay. Once again, there are all kinds of studies. You can read all about this. Right. This is not. Once again, this is not one of those conspiracy theories. This was, they had the goods. They scientifically did all this stuff. What I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is when they talk about what's it called uh uh the ability of the brain to extend its thinking capacity. Oh, what's that called? It's Anyway, anyway, uh, when uh, when I was growing up, they always said that you were born and you had a certain number of cells, especially brain cells, and
Mm-hmm.
that over time, you would, that would be the limited amount, and that's it, no more. Tough luck. And then after a while, they learned that depending on the stimulation you get in the fetus from 3 months into a year and a half outside, that the more of the different types of stimuli that you get, the
Mm.
greater the brain's capacity to extend that neural network. I still can't think of the name of what that's called, but there's a whole process that happens. And so in that thing, for the first year and a half that the entity is outside of the womb, that it's a baby now. Okay, for that first year and a half, the brain has no capacity for don't. In other words, the only thing that it can conceive of is creation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say to the kid, don't run across the street, what it hears, his brain hears is run across the street.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why you have to get them in that from that 1 through 7 time period, is to limit and distort the capacity that they have, because the IQ is not the brain or the thinking, it's the capacity to extend beyond the thinking that you have now, and how
Mm.
quickly and efficiently you can do that. It's an intelligent quotient. It's your in other words, it's your capacity to expand. And so, of course, you gotta limit the young people, um, in their own thinking capacity, not just in terms of limiting what they're thinking, but just thinking. Period.
Mm.
But once again, most animals on this planet learn by mimicry. They do not go according to what we say. So we've got to put up scenarios, we got to put up images, we got to present these things so that people of all ages see us doing stuff, and doing stuff positive, and doing stuff that's beyond the parameters. In other words, what I mean by that is, you mentioned clairaudience. Clairaudience should be like like a workshop. That should be a norm in our community. That shouldn't be something that you go to the movies and see Neo doing.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I did a workshop with a Asian woman who came from Yale University. She came here to Brooklyn, New York, and it was all Black people in the workshop, male and females. And she gave us certain instructions on things that we had to do, and a lot of us were, I guess you would say, activating. So some of them could. Their smelling changed, like they were describing things that they could smell, that people were like, well, how are you going to say you can smell death? There's no such thing as
Of
smelling
course
this,
there is.
or
Right.
seeing these colors that
Right.
there's only red, blue, green, orange, white. How are you seeing these other colors? So things began to happen to us, including hearing
Mm-hmm.
was activated for long distances. Like you said, it wasn't the normal distance. So
Right.
you would say, hey, do you hear the siren? And then I would pull over in the car, and they would say, there's no. And then a couple of minutes later,
Right.
it would come. So
Right.
she graced us with her presence, and she did do the workshop. So you are absolutely right.
No, but it's I mean, you brought up a very significant aspect of it, which is during the workshop, because people always talk about, like, well, how do I do? What do I commit to? Is it the breathing? Is it the fasting? Is it, having no sex? Is it having polyamorous sex? It's like, what do I do? And part of it, though, is the recognition. Like, you already went through the workshop. You already see some people have it, but then where do we get the resistance from? Not just the outside, but from the person sitting right next to me. It's like, what do you mean? How can you even imagine that you can see that or feel that or touch that? Do you realize that it was 102 years ago? No, let me say 100 and no, it wasn't 102 years ago. Let me just say 105 years ago. So if I went to Yale in 1920, okay, and I went for astronomy, the professors there would tell me with 100% assuredness that we and our solar system is in the only galaxy in the universe. And Mr. Hubble, who had to walk to the university where they had this telescope and begged them for a job, he went and looked at the plates, because back then they didn't have, cameras with photographic plates. They had metal plates. So they take the pictures and the things would be on the metal plates. And he looked at one of the things on the metal plates and he looked at the other plate and he's like, wait a minute, these things are moving apart from each other. And he says, we're not the only galaxy. My point is that if he had gone out and told other people about what he had just discovered, they would have said, no way. What are you talking about? You don't know nothing.
Right.
And he had physical proof, right?
Right.
So I'm just saying that it's both outside and inside, that we got to get used to, ask upon, or like in most cases, we already feel, we don't know what the full expression of those gifts are, but we can feel it. We can feel it inside of us. We can feel it wanting to come out and be expressed. Okay. At the same time, we also have to rehearse for the pushback we're going to get from, just our own family and our people around us. Exactly. That's the strength that I'm talking about. That's the commitment. There's never a greater test than your home address.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And you're right, because we struggle with describing what we were experiencing, because it was like, what's going on? Like, but the fact that everyone in the group was going through these changes, it was like, okay, it was okay to communicate with each other. But like I said, to be able to go to other people and say, hey, this is happening, I'm having these experiences, it's almost like they think you're going nuts.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying, that, we also, we need that safety valve, that we need to surround ourselves with other people, not even that they're going through the same thing, but that we can talk to them and let off what we're, not even that they understand us, but that we can't just let that stuff keep building up and building up. It's I mean, that's where we're at right now with the sun. We got the peak of the sunspots, and all that magnetic energy is coming to the surface and spewing out all that, both what they call the sunspot energy, which is light, and also the coronal mass ejections, which is greatly influencing us and sending us for disrupting our normal way of looking at the world. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean the fact that earlier this summer we could see the aurora borealis right in Long Island. Those colors at night that you have to go up to Canada or Iceland or somewhere to see that. Things are changing.
Yes.
Things are happening, and as far as just the insect distribution is changing.
Yeah, remember we talked about the spider in August? Remember? And now it's cold as hell, and we were saying it was going to be a cold winter because all those
Mhm.
spiders in August, opposed to their normal thing in September. My question is this, and I hate to take y'all off topic, but I
No,
just want
no, yeah,
Don't
when you talked about going into the Kali Yuga, now you're
yes.
saying it's only like 1%, but we go into this golden age that some people say is going back to when we were people that were more elevated in the pyramid growing ages. Do you think that number will expand to maybe the 7% as we go
Okay,
into?
okay. See, once again, as they used to say when I was a kid, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Thank you.
Um, okay, we, 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 all of this, all of the, we don't live in a 30-second commercial world of education. Okay, that's pop culture that gives you that. Okay, and all I'm saying is the yuga system is, there's 4 sections, and each one is a 5,000 year segment, of which there's different segments within each of those yugas. Okay, we just came out of the Kali Yuga. We're at the low end. It's like a giant 360 ball, right? Well, we're at literally the 180. You can't get any lower. You can't dip any slower. We're right at that crux, right? So the Yuga system says we're in the next Yuga now, but it said, welcome. Okay, that last Yuga that you went through, that you bottomed out, man. It's like the lowest human expressions. Dang, what were y'all thinking? Okay, so it's good now. You're on the other side of the Yuga. Oh yeah, but you got to pay the soul tax, bro. You got 200 years of cleanup, and that's literally what it says in the Yuga text. That we got 200 years of balancing and correcting. And also, long before that, my brethren and sister, we got to go through the meteor field. The meteor field, most of space is space, meaning, they say it's a vacuum. It can't be a vacuum. Okay, that does not make sense. But, because if it were, then there wouldn't be stardust and space dust and meteors and comets. But what do you call that? Planets. It wouldn't be. That wouldn't go against the definition of a vacuum. However, we know that where the meteors come from, the comets, that they come from a segment. Well, that's part of something that broke up in our solar system a long time ago, and it just recycles itself. It comes in, it goes out, it comes back in, it goes out, it comes back in. Okay, well, we've been away from the nursery where all these comets and meteors have been existing, but we're slowly inching toward that. So in about 7 or so years, the Yuga knowledge tells us that we're going to be approximating that field of all that stuff. And of course, it'd be a great action made for TV movie of the week movie, and the meteor coming to kick our butt. Oh no, nature don't work like that, homie. See, just us passing by that many of those things would set our atmosphere on fire. So we got some cleansing to do.
Ooh, you see, you got some cleansing to do.
I know, right? Hey, I gotta go find the Hopi so I can get back to the ant people take me underground.
Hey, you better get some Comet and some Babo. You need some. Look, a lot of what we call weather and climate is emotionally controlled. So a lot of this stuff is not written. It's not the final chapter. It's not written in stone. Even if you meet 1% of your crew, of all the people you know in your life, right? I don't mean forever, but I mean the ones that are in your life right now. And you meet 1% of them are on board with the things you're on board with. And after a year, you see it's 2%. You know there's been a shift.
Right. Okay.
It does not seem like a lot,
Okay.
but you know, we can keep a lot of this stuff from happening, or if it does happen, that will have the least amount of effect on the least amount of people.
I got you.
You know, because people keep telling me, "Oh man, they can control the weather." I'm like, stand in line. You know, the Egyptians were known for being able to make it rain at any time they wanted to. And they had to because it only rained 2 inches a year there.
Yep. And not only that, here in America, years ago, you know, people would speak about the American Indian. They would do rain dances, you
Of
know,
course.
to make it rain, you know.
That's
And one
right.
of my teachers was teaching us when we were down traveling, we would have class. He would have the women make it
Sure.
rain.
Sure.
So it's definitely doable.
I have a great niece that thinks she can do it now. I
Think
believe.
she doing it. She
I
probably
believe.
doing it.
Mm-hmm.
She went to Florida and it was raining and they was at Disney World and she told her aunt, "We got to stop this rain." So
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
didn't rain for 3 days. And
Yeah.
then she told her later, it's like, that's something I got under my belt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
So
You should
back on
encourage
track
her.
though, do you think that that's DNA specific? Like there are people that can't control the rain because it's in their DNA opposed to me, like I have visions. You know what I mean? And then when
I,
somebody tell me about a dream, I'm like, I don't interpret dreams. So then I can't, because I tell them like, quick, I don't interpret dreams. I I interpret visions. You know what I mean? Because there's people that come for me for those interpretations. You know.
okay. Well, see, once again, I'm gonna go. What do they call it? Off road here. um, there is a phenomenon which right now is diagnosed as a disorder uh, or a disease, and yet I believe it is an innate talent that all of us dormantly already have, and this is called synesthesia. That is, you know, there's different forms of it. There's some musicians that when they hear music, they see colors. Some people can taste sound. Others, others can touch you and suddenly diagnose you, and they
Yeah.
describe these people as having something wrong with them. And I'm like, no, they're just missing the social rudeness gene and getting
Oh.
and getting right to the fact that everything is everything. So I just want to remind us that, when we talk about gifts and talents, that, uh, you know, for example, even though I make three-dimensional things, and yet I am not visually oriented. It took me years to teach myself. Like everybody else, they like close your eyes and visualize a sneaker. It took me years to be able to do that. Okay. But because I am clairaudient, I learned that
Okay.
when people would say something to me, once I heard it, even if I never heard the idea before, didn't know what they said, my mind would create it.
Mm.
And that's a form of synesthesia. So I'm just saying to look for that. Look for that. Don't just diagnose ourselves with that limited Western way, like I'm this or I'm that. Well, look, there's all kinds of things that we're capable of doing.
Thank you for that answer. A good answer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that right there
Appreciate it.
is key.
It's very powerful because it answers the show. I mean, in a way. Definitely. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. So
Well,
when we, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Please go finish. You know.
Well, I was going to say, I'm looking for this thing. I see. I should have thought about the three-dimensional world. Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to talk for a moment about water. And of course, water is the big buzz thing. Everybody's talking about talking to the water, putting images under the water, programming the water, making the water more alkaline, more acid, structuring it, all this other stuff. Well, I just want to say that part of the magic and mystery of water is like anything else. It gains energy by its spinning, and it takes on and distributes information by its moving.
Mm.
I'm going to say that again. Those are two. They sound very simple, but they're they're worth investigating. Anything that is spinning, anything that's spinning is increasing its frequency, and anything that's moving is a form of communication, sending off and taking in information. So I just wanted to say that a lot of times when we get our water to move faster, and of course we could pour it through a device, we could put in one of these spinning things, and all these structuring devices that we have, we can do that. But if we just pour our water back and forth between two glasses, okay, as the water's increasing and going back and forth, a lot of times the different atoms, the H2Os, will break apart. Boom. And then they come back together. I'm coming.
Take your
Okay.
time.
Okay. And when they come back together, they have a different shape. Okay. Now you got the bigger one. And because I went to Harvard, I'm going to say the littler one. And believe me, this molecule compared to that molecule, this is way smaller than that one. My question to the panel this evening is, what's the advantage of having a much smaller molecule than the one we started off with? Because that's called structuring the water, by the way. When we see all this stuff about structuring the water, where it's starting off with one shape, it breaks apart and makes a much smaller shape, and then breaks apart and comes back to its original size. So what's the advantage that nature has for busting up the water molecule and making it smaller?
I'll let Miss Bliss go first, then I'll.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go. I'll go, Miss Blitz. For me, it's that your body consumes it better because it goes down to the. It's like they have the monatomic gold and the colloidal gold, but the monatomic gold is smaller and it goes into your body. That.
Yeah. Okay. Well. See. Once again, the thing is that all these things, all these shapes have what they call apertures. Openings. Just like a camera has an aperture. You follow me?
Yes.
Okay. And so the advantage, I'm just saying this because right now, Brother Ezekiel will tell you, years ago, I used to say structure in the water, and people would look at me like, did you make that up? And I'm like, no, I didn't make that up. Now everybody and their mama is doing something with structured water.
Yeah.
So, okay, I just wanted to say the key to understanding all of this what the brother said was absolutely correct. It's going to energize your water. It's going to put more information. But I'm always, little Lester always wants to know, well, how is it doing that? You know, how is it doing that? And so the answer that science gave me is the smaller this aperture. So you see how this one is this size?
Yes.
And then this one, like this aperture is this size?
Yes.
It's smaller?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, when we get down to the monatomic gold, as the brother just said, okay, we're taking something that's, you know, like a lump, and we're breaking it apart till it's only one little thing. It's one little tiny molecule. Well, guess what? The smaller the aperture, what, brother Isiku?
It's absorbed into your body. Yeah.
No, that's not the key, bro. That's not the key. The smaller the aperture, the higher the frequency that will go through that.
Oh, so the smaller the aperture, the higher the frequency that travels through it.
So that's why we love water, because the water is always breaking apart and making smaller molecules, and that's when we prey on it.
Yes.
And then all that intelligence comes back and comes into us, and we take on that same thing. We open and receive. Yes, come on now. They told me about metaphysical.
That explains the test where, I don't know if you guys saw the test where the guy had the water and he would speak into the water, and then he would take the results and put it in the and I think the telescope, and he would see the structure of the water change. And he would say, if I love you, the water would change. And he'd say, I hate you, the water would look, you know, all disfigured and ugly.
That's the work of Dr. Emoto, okay?
Yes.
And I was privileged enough to, Dr. Emoto actually is not the one that came up with that. He came up with the means of showing us that. It was Dr. Benvenuto who in the late 80s came up with that. And because I have this thing about the corners in the rooms, okay, the corners in the rooms hold on to the positive ions that we have too many of.
Right.
And so therefore we can replace that. We can change. We literally don't just stick something up there willy-nilly. We change the shape of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Thank you.
Well, if I could give you a little math lesson if you got a moment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, once again, where's my handy dandy? Where's my teaching rod?
And while he get a family, I just showed you where I went and got some pine needles and I put them in a jar and some water.
Hey.
And so then that's how I get my negative ions in my home.
From the pine needles sitting in the water.
Pine needles,
Okay, hold on.
We just took a little station identification until you get the.
But I'm about to take this up a notch, my friend.
Oh, word! That's what we talking about.
Okay, right.
DMX on y'all. He get ready to go DMX on y'all. He gonna take it up a notch.
DMX. That's breakfast. Come on now. Okay. No, so. Okay, can we see? Can you see this corner up here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do this corner right here. Okay. So when when we commonly say a 90-degree corner, that's typical of our scientific way of expressing things. Okay. We actually have 3 90-degree corners. The first one is here. You see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The second one is here.
Yeah.
And the third one is the one up here at the top. You follow me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is called a 90-degree corner because it doesn't have anything to attach to it. So it remains a 90-degree angle. Okay. And so this is 90, this is 90, and that's 90. When you add that up, that's 270. You go to any astrology book and you look up the angles of astrology. And they'll tell you 60 and 120 are harmonious angles. 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle, there's going to be some conflict because, no matter where the energy is going, it's going to change direction. When you got 270-degree angle in astrology is one of the most conflicting angles because all the energy is going in different directions. So 270 is a disruptive angle. What we do is we take a triangle and we put it up in the corner. You follow that?
Yes.
Okay, so now it's no longer just 90 and 90 because we've made that line over here. So this now 90, 90, and 90. So we changed this, and this is, instead of being just 90, this is now 180, this is 180, and this is 180. So we took it, we went from 270 to now 720. And that's significant because that's how you can tell the frequency of any of these objects. You add up the number of angles, and that tells you the frequency that's going in there and coming out. Okay.
Wow.
Hey,
wow.
They told me it was all metaphysical, couldn't be figured out. It's going to take an AI computer. Okay, so here we are, here we go.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Okay, now we know. Oh, let me get the naked one first. Okay, where's that naked one at? Okay, so here I am studying about negative and positive ions for 10 years. Of course, in that 10-year period, I did find out that the pyramid shape generates negative ions. So being inside of a pyramid is good. Having pyramids in your house is good. And rounding off the corners, just putting the triangle up there in each of the corners, and of course the bottom corners too eventually. But having all that was, you're convincing the positive ions to convert back, but you still need a way to generate the negative ions. Okay. And the pine, of course, is a miraculous thing because of all the different flora in nature. The plant life that gives off the most negative ions is, in fact, the pine tree. Okay. And the general rule of thumb is the thinner the leaves, the more negative ions it's going to let off. So your spider plant, a lot of those plants have those thin leaves, but your pine is specifically designed because it lives all year round, and it's always letting off those negative ions. And of course, it's the pine cone that gave us the root of the word, the pineal gland, because it's shaped like a pine cone. So there's obviously a direct relationship between the negative ions of the pine tree and the pineal or pineal gland. Okay, so it was 10 years. I'm going around. I've collected all these crystals. I got all these gemstones. This is back in the 70s and the 80s. It wasn't popular like it is now. Okay. And then I find out that if I fill this with water, if I put this in with water and I reach in and I get my quartz crystal, okay, and I take my quartz crystal and I put it into this thing with water, okay, and I just wait. All I got to do is wait, because after 24 hours, there's going to be negative ions coming out this far from the bottle.
Mm.
And then after 48 hours, it's this far. And then after 72 hours, it's this far around the bottle. The thing is that positive ions and positive ion radiation, like with your TV set and your computer and the fluorescent lights, the positive ion radiation from the TV goes 50 feet, and positive ions go right through matter. Negative ions do not. So if I put this on my table, I got something that's going around like this, but no further. Then, of course, I read across a book on the street from 1895. It was a textbook for grade schoolers. I'm going to repeat that. The book was written in 1895. It was for grade schoolers 1 through 7.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, if you wrap the quartz crystal with copper insulated wire,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put that doohickey, or of course, this one's too big for the mouth. You always got to have that dress rehearsal. Always got to have that dress rehearsal, Negroes. That's what I tell everybody. Okay. You put your quartz crystal in there, and then it's wrapped, because there's more energy going through it. More energy is being, the quartz crystal is pushing the water faster. The water is moving faster, and therefore the field will go out farther.
Mm.
Okay.
Wow.
But it's still not going through the table. You understand? I still have not conquered the mystery of the negative ions going through the matter.
Right.
Okay. And you notice I'm stating this personally. Nobody else took this on. I'm like, no, it's meant for me to figure this out.
Mm.
Because I've been given all the things that led up to it. And it had to teach me science. It had to teach me. I make all the pyramids. I did all that myself. So I'm like, okay, no, we're on. Okay. So, of course, if we look at the Earth, they always show that the Earth is, flat. And but around this planet, we've got these bands, which we call the magnetic field. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And therefore, I asked the universe, well, what's the function of this magnetic field? And it says, well, it keeps all those cosmic rays and that serious radiation that comes from the stars and from the sun. It blocks that from coming here, or else it would be disruptive to plant life and to our DNA and especially to our electronics. Okay. So I said, okay, well, if it does that, then if I reverse engineer it, in other words, my lovelies, first I make the field. You follow me?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what did I do? Oh, okay. First I make the field, and then when I put the crystal in, it goes out. Like in other words, if the energy from the sun is pushing this way, then if I put the crystal in, it's going to push that way.
Ah, got you.
And therefore, now, guess what? After only 38 years of research. Well, 35, but when I put this in here and I put it on the table, it's not going through the table and through the wall. This goes 15 feet.
Wow.
Okay, and so the combination of the triangles and this will cover your house and your neighbor's house as well.
Wow. You just went LL Cool J on us. Back in the
Uh,
day, I can't tell.
don't call it a comeback.
Don't call it
Oh,
nice, nice, nice,
And
nice.
see, I'm living proof of what I'm saying. I did not understand anything about science. When I started this, my friends will tell you, I was like, oh man, I don't want to deal with any of that science stuff. And that's what the brothers talk about. The forces that be, both internally and externally, said, oh no, my brother. You know, we don't know how you got here, but now that you're here, you're going to wake up to this. And I surely did. I had a full scholarship for learning about computers. And because these computers had this thing that was affecting me, which was the positive ions, I left the class.
Wow.
And it was only a month later when I was talking with a professor, and I just casually mentioned this. He says, oh, that's positive ions. And that's what led me. That's why I'm still talking about this 50 years later. So when people say, "Oh no, it can't be done," whatever, no. I make all, you know. Oh, where's my triangle at? Okay. I used to put a piece of copper sheet that I would buy from the metal shop. You know, they cut it out for me because copper, of all the metals, copper has the greatest electron cloud. In other words, the electrons that surround the atoms or the nuclei of the copper goes out farther than any other metal. And so that was my bait. That was how I was trying to convert the positive ions. You know, the copper would go out far. It would meet up with those things, and they would rejoin and make something functional for us. You follow me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so after a while, you know, because there's only one other gentleman that makes these triangles. Okay, he charges $150 per triangle, by the way. Okay, because it works. And so after a while, you know, the copper became expensive. Then there was 9/11. I couldn't get to the store, and then the man went out of business. So I was like, what am I going to do? So the universe is like, no problem, bro. We got this thing COVID coming. I'm like, COVID? How's that going to help me? And they're like, well, you know, we've been working on this paint for 7 years. It makes a hexagon of copper molecules on the surface of this thing. And every time a positive ion or a virus flies in front of it, it jumps out and tackles it and takes it out.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
Say what?
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Good information. Really, really good information.
Well, see, once again, my sister, and once again, it meets my standard, which is I can communicate to you how you can do this yourself. And therefore, if you make it yourself and you do it yourself, then you'll know. If you see results, you'll know that it's the technology and not some special thing that's unique to my stuff. Okay? Because anybody that knows me will tell you, my first clients all made their stuff out of cardboard. And it worked. This is just a little bit more sophisticated. And guess what? We didn't have as much funk going through the air back then. And so we didn't need as much technology either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Someone has a question from the chat. They want to know, does it matter what type of crystal that you put inside of the water? I guess that's what the question is.
That's an excellent question. Yes, what, okay. As long as it is a member of the quartz family, so that is clear quartz, citrine, amethyst, uh, that principle will work. Also included in the principle is the number of turns that you have makes a difference. And the thinner the insulated wire, meaning the more turns you can get, the more potent it can be as well. So you can get a really long, thin crystal and just wrap it a lot of times. But it doesn't really matter. Now, once again, the scientific community, even though all those watches you see that say quartz on it, all of them are run by, little things squeezing a tiny sheet of quartz, and that's what makes them run, right?
Mm-hmm.
The silicon chip inside of the computer, that's a quartz. Same principle. You got stuff moving around. But they're afraid to say for some reason about this piezoelectric effect. So the one quartz crystal that they named that they give credit to this effect is tourmaline. So if you have black tourmaline, green tourmaline, pink tourmaline, that will also work for this effect as well.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
But remember, any member of the quartz family, that includes the agates, the jaspers, all of them. It's harder to wrap them. It's easier to wrap the straight ones with the point.
Mm-hmm.
But any member, if you look in your book and it says quartz or silicate, it will work in this principle. And I also tell people, because a lot of people say, well, I blah 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 this blah, and I'm like, well, go outside, go into your backyard, walk down the street, you'll see quartz on the ground. You can just fill up your jar with just quartz. You don't have to wrap them. It won't be as effective, but at least you're doing something.
Yes.
And like the brother said, it would be profound if he made a little thing on his bottle where he had some of the pine needles sticking out, so it would act like a wick. And in other words, that would make a steady flow of negative ions going into the environment. And also, believe it or not, whenever we have screens on our screen windows, the screen, of course, is keeping out the insects and whatnot, but it's also breaking up the water molecule into making positive ions. So you would want to either do what the brother had, which is just get a candy dish and put your pine needles in there, and as the water blows through, it's creating the negative ions again.
Can I add a quartz too?
Can I get a witness? Can I get a license plate?
Yeah.
Yes, brother. Yes, my brother.
That's done. Trust me, it's done.
And stick the crystal pointing up.
Okay, gotcha.
Got you. And then the copper wiring is the thinnest wire that you can find, right?
Well, once again, I'm a practical man as well. And they got thinner wire, but it's harder to wrap. It'll snap. So just test it out. I mean, 22 gauge or anything smaller than that is usually acceptable. Even if this is the kind of science that is, it'll work no matter what you do. If you get uninsulated wire, because for years I had uninsulated wire, and you just clean off that wire with lemon juice and salt, every few days, and that'll keep it active.
Okay.
The wire that you saw is insulated, so it doesn't need to be cleaned. It doesn't need to be cleaned, but all this will work.
Gotcha.
All it will work. And see, once again, this is not about has this been scientifically tested. This has been scientifically tested long before I was thought of. Okay, the issue is it helping us? Meaning, meaning putting these things up, you're going to notice that after a while, there's going to be, it's not that you're going to notice there's less dust, but you're going to notice that you're breathing differently.
Mm.
You know, that, for a lot of people, it's that they suddenly remember their dreams more clearly. So they don't have a direct one on one thing, but they start to notice changes in their environment, in their
Got it.
behavior.
Wow.
Got it.
And that's only the scientists have predicted this already. They got all these machines that make the negative ions that people put in their homes.
Yeah, they sure do. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you, I've had the privilege of testing this stuff out for 35 years, and the people that have those machines, as soon as I put the triangles up or they put their triangles up, they immediately feel that it's more effective because you're not
I,
losing the 20% to the corner.
I feel mine if I lay down by it because I got it on the floor. I feel it. I
Yeah,
definitely feel that. Or sometimes I put my feet up close
yeah,
to it,
yeah,
little inch
sure.
foot around it. So I feel it. I know time getting short, Miss
Yeah.
Bliss. Can I just ask you one more question because we want to
Yeah,
tap
yeah,
in?
sure. Ask your last question. Go ahead.
Okay. We talked about me dealing with sickness and the duality of the okay. When we were talking last week, Lester, you tapped on the importance of duality at this time. Will you re-elaborate on that, the duality, so people understand like some of their meditation should be duality or equal and opposites?
Well, okay. What we were talking about is that when people say that they're studying astrology, okay, and um, and for a lot of people, their study of astrology encompasses their sun sign. That's it. So the first thing I want to say is that in astrology, it deals with the idea of complements. That whatever my sun sign is, there is going to be a sign that's 180 degrees from that. That is the complement to whatever my energy is. And I'll be a more efficient human and a more efficient spirit if I learn how to work with with, with that complementary energy.
Mm.
Okay. In English, we have the prefix bi, you know. And so bi means when you have that as a prefix, it means there are two things that have complementary energy, but they're working together. And if you have the word di, then that means you got two energies, but they're not working together. They're like diametrically opposed. Okay. So at this time, of course, we're in uh we're in uh the Sagittarius sun zone, but we also just went through the new moon, which the new moon is always the opposite to the sun sign, and so that's Gemini. So we have to look in terms of the duality within ourselves, as well as doing stuff that's right for not just myself, but for the society that I live in. And so it might be that we get more involved with recycling. And I don't mean that in terms of just working with the system. It might be that we work out something that we start to recycle stuff more locally.
Mm.
We start our own compost bins. And I don't know why people don't get the idea, other than complaining at the end of the year that they got so many cucumbers. Well, you set up your group that you get to know all the gardeners, and the people that got too many tomatoes can share with the people that got too many cucumbers and the squash, and it all works out.
Yes.
But that takes, I don't know, forethought, if not third, second, or first thought. So let's get this on in terms of uh not doing the same thing that we've been doing. 2026 is going to be a one universal year. And So but it's just like all those, it's like all the slogans, think act locally but think globally, like, do put one foot in your actual block and one foot in your neighborhood, one foot into the local politics and one into the state and national politics. It's like it's always a balance of things. Yeah, I'll say this because I know we have to go. For the first time in recorded history, the African forest let off more carbon dioxide than it took in. Houston, we have a problem. Okay. So it's not the end of the world, but when they can't keep up, and it's both the fact that we're polluting and we're cutting stuff down. I don't know if you heard about this new form of plastic, but it off gases. It lets off the gases.
Wow. It lets off the gases?
Yes, it's a new type of plastic that they came up with once they started fracking.
Oh.
And so and instead of using petroleum, they now use those gases. I heard the man on NPR, and the interviewer, the reporter was saying, well, this is a new technology. Is it safe? And he goes, it's perfectly safe as long as it doesn't encounter any light. Otherwise,
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Otherwise, it will start off gassing, and I'm like, and he didn't say this, and I'm like, but so you're trying to tell me it goes into the air and back into the water too? Yeah, okay, I got you.
Wow.
Okay, that's and he also said that by the year 2050, they plan on having made 3 times as much plastic that has been made up until this time, since the beginning of plastic production.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So, sometimes you can stop stuff, and other times, we're just going to learn how to break this stuff down.
I agree.
But we don't stop. Is my point. We don't go and like it's the end of the world and what? No. Yeah. Yeah. Anywho, are there any more questions?
I think that's all the questions. Yeah, I think that's all the questions. Jessica, you don't have any questions? The audience doesn't have any questions?
Well, no, because the brother. No, I'm gonna before I let him. He's bringing up a good point. We're seeing. It's not like this is some metaphysical thing that we have to take a whole bunch of South American vines and lick some toads and stuff. We got a comet that's that went by the sun. Every other comet we've seen and went by the sun. Stuff melted off it. It had a tail. This thing didn't have a tail. It had headlights. It was projecting energy forward instead of backwards. These are signs that we need to pay attention to.
Right.
Also, this thing is like 10 times the size of most comets, and it's not even from our solar system. It's from outside of our solar system. That means something. All these things mean something. And then, of course, finally, I'm the facetious, person. So I say, smile. Everyone's like, what? I'm like, it's taking our pictures. It's water. So it's going to take the Polaroid to take back to the home base to show everybody what's the progress.
Someone wanted to know if recycling helped or made a difference. Does recycling make a difference?
Okay, it's a very fond trope that everybody says recycling does not make a difference. On the metaphysical or spiritual level, recycling makes a tremendous difference because it allows each of us to be responsible for what we put out, and how we take care of what we're putting off into the universe. It was always set up that if every single citizen recycled and did all the right things, put the papers in the paper thing and did all that stuff, and that would only be 15%. Like business and all these other things are always had more stuff than the average person ever could, and had all kinds of things that let them off the hook on doing that. So I don't look at it the same way most people do that says it makes no difference. It does make a difference. And for me, the most important thing that it makes a difference is in terms of what we show the young people. Because if young people in my neighborhood like to go down the street and tear the branches off the trees. And I'm like, no. You can have anger, but that's not you. That's a living being. And the odds are that it will outlive you and me.
Right.
It's lowering the temperature of the surrounding environment. It's taking pollutant out. It's allowing homes for all kinds of birds and microorganisms.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just ranting and raving now.
Yeah, no, everyone should do their best to do their part. Basically, that's the way I believe. So every little bit helps when it's a whole community.
Well, I just want to say one other thing, and because me, the young black angry rebel that I was in my 20s, he would say, "Well, we got to start with cycling." What does that mean? It means that when the trees let the leaves off, they don't expect for those leaves to go to the dump somewhere. They're functioning right there. They're meant to break down and give some of the nutrients back to the area that they just came from. And who lives in the leaves during the winter time? Who lives there? The queen bees live there. The bee, not the worker bees. The queen bees. Now she's a bad mofo if she's living outside, waiting for it to get warm again so she can up her apartment. Come on now.
Yeah.
Think about that. This is, when I say cycling, I mean we gotta deal with this stuff right here. The idea of getting rid of our stuff and putting it somewhere that we don't see what happens to it. That's not responsibility. Just because it goes away does not mean we're properly taking care of it. And I say I have the right to say that. You know why? Because in 1953, the year I was born, they started this program. And the program was they took the garbage and they took them on the barges and they took them out and they dumped them in the ocean. Okay? And in 1980, some of that garbage came back to the shore. And they went over to the dump. They tried to dump it in the dump over in Long Island. And they drilled down 50 feet down in the dump. And they found a newspaper from the year I was born. It wasn't even wet.
Wow.
We can and must do better.
Wow.
Okay, my final rant and rave. A whole bunch of our senior citizens now, they live in these houses and, they got backyards and stuff is not growing there, or too much stuff is growing, it's overgrown. We need to get in contact with these people and say, we'll clean up your backyard. And then, as we clean up the backyard, you know what happens? We start to see that there was a garden there.
Yes.
Then the woman starts telling me about what used to grow there. And then the neighbors start thinking, can you help me with ours? And, before we know it, we got a whole ecosystem up and running again.
That's right.
Okay. This is not the time to be waiting for somebody to do the right thing. Yeah. I'm here.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Wow, that's crazy. Like so many things that we're dumping that's not, what do you call, biodegradable.
Right,
It's
right,
not biodegradable.
right.
And yet we still use it, I guess, because it's cheaper or easy to make, but it's totally unhealthy for us as our society.
Right. And once again, it's up to us to figure out what to do with this stuff because there's so much of it. You understand what I'm saying? We don't have to invent anything or go for natural resources. We got the so-called natural resources coming to our house every day. You know? And I say that I'm ranting and raving now because people say to me, "Well, I would make a pyramid, but I don't have the materials." I'm like, the Amazon box sitting next to you. What you talking about? It delivered to your house, homie. People think I'm joking. One of the reasons why I started was because there was a man that worked at the World Trade Center, back when there was the World Trade Centers. And one day he went down to the basement. I forget why, but he went down to the basement for some reason. And he saw all these giant bales and these giant trucks down there. And he's like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, this is the garbage." And he checked it out and he realized that just the cardboard and the wood and the regular garbage from the World Trade Center was enough that he quit his job and formed a recycling thing just from that building.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Okay. And so I'm just looking at things like that, instead of thinking recycling, sending it off somewhere and blah, 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 like we should be thinking about we have opportunities right here.
Boom. That's right. That's right. Yes. All the opportunity is right here. We just have to get out of the box, stop thinking out of the box.
Hey, you know, um, you know, it, the thinking. Okay, from my estimation, okay, if we're thinking, we're outside of the box already. The idea of the box is what keeps us from thinking there's more to do. So I'm just saying that people say you got to think outside the box. Well, you know, that's like people telling me, well, we have no evidence that the Egyptians were able to cut the stone, and I'm like, okay, but they had sutureless brain surgery. That means they cut open the skull, operated on the brain, and put the skull cap back on without sutures. We don't do that now.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
And so people are like, well, what other evidence do you have? And I'm like, well, the Egyptians had gold. And they're like, yeah, we have gold too. And I'm like, yeah, but see, they invented the gold standard for the world. There wasn't a gold standard before then. They understood that there was 365 days in a year. Romans had 320 days. All I'm saying is the more we look into it, the more we realize there's probably with the narrative they told us about these people, not the people's capacity to do this stuff.
Right.
And the stuff is way older than what they tell us anyway. That's just obvious. So, but we're the modern Kemites, you know.
We going back, Barbara. We wait. That 1.5%, we going back. We gonna carry them through the oogles, right, Miss Bliss? We
That's
carry
right.
them through the oogles. Amen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have no fear. They woke us up. We like the John the Baptists.
That's hey. Till you just can't Yuga no more.
Yes.
Yuga.
Sand. I'm sorry, I had one more. I was watching this special yesterday on the value of river sand and how much silica is in there. Have you ever used that to help resonate and bring your house to a higher level? Just because it's crazy what they're doing with sand. Because I was like, oh, because it's got gold in it. But they didn't even mention gold was in it. They just mentioned, because
yes.
It's dual. I mean, you got the limestone one side and you got the silica on the other, so you got the positive and negative energy, but all in this little molecule, and they do so much with sand.
Remember what I said before. The smaller you have, the higher the frequency that can enter into that thing.
Right.
So you're saying, of course, I made many pyramids when I put sand on the outside. Absolutely. And then of course, when I work with tubes, whether they're copper tubes or wooden tubes, I put sand in the middle of them too. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, sand has tremendous amount of uses. You can heat it and keep your thing warm. Sand will keep your liquids cool. I mean, it's on and on with the sand properties.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, hopefully you come back. You
Absolutely.
Well, see, once again, you're the first people in years that actually saw my stuff in action. So,
right. Yes.
And see, once again, I have the privilege of, and forget does it work or not. I have the privilege of waiting to see what it's going to evoke from all you people when you start to use these technologies. You're already on the road to knowing that you got stuff to do.
Yes.
And therefore this just makes it easier. Too many times. Oh, in terms of Dr. Emoto's work, the most important thing that I learned was when I would come to areas where I'd investigated everything that science had up until that time. I go into the library, I did all my experiments. I did check the ancient people. I did all that work, right? And so right at that moment, it said, program the water. And so I would do my what's the word I'm looking for? When what you do to the water when you I said it several times tonight. I just can't think of the word. Structure. When I structure the water, and they said when you structure the water, ask for the next step. And I would drink that water, and I would go about my business. I forget about it, and sometimes be a day later, sometimes be a week later, but whenever it was, all of a sudden it would come cascaded. The whole full blown answer would come.
Wow.
And so I was like, look, we have all this access. I don't want to hear anything about the government and the lasers and the, LRAD. LRAD is a thing, though. That's low radiation amplification device. That can either make you fall to your knees or it's for disrupting crowds. And I'm saying, in spite of all that, okay, bring your LRAD.
Exactly. That's right.
I'll march around that 7 times, and that whole thing had to come down. So,
Biblical. Okay.
That's
yeah, yeah, we're equal opportunity ass stomper.
Oh yeah.
nice. Nice.
I'm just saying,
That
this
is.
boot was made for funkin'.
Yeah. Oh.
Gratitude.
Oh,
Gratitude.
let me stomp. I mean, stop. well, beloveds. It was great. It was great sharing,
Appreciate it.
and
Definitely.
I only share my stories to let you know that if I can figure out what I was working on, which at the time it was supposed to be scientifically impossible for these things to be figured out, and I came up with the stuff that literally I was carrying around with me. I had the crystals with me for years until I learned this thing about wrapping them
Mhm.
and then putting the condenser on them. But all that took time, and that's something I totally appreciate now. The time, the time that it takes to get something right.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I agree. The time invested. Yeah, I
Because you
agree.
were committed.
That
Commitment, family. Commitment to your gift is very important.
and that's the payoff.
Yeah.
That's the payoff, not the selling my company for $1 billion to some uh, silicon person.
Mhm.
That would be nice too, but that's not gonna be my motivation for getting up the next day.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna be thinking about my getting in my Tesla.
exactly.
don't,
Exactly.
don't
Wow.
right. Don't even get me started, okay? Because look, I, I I was studying Tesla in the early 70s. And so when I had the opportunity to go out to Colorado Springs looking for his laboratory that he did his most famous experiments in, and I went out there all young and enthusiastic. And of course, you know, they gave me a ride. This wasn't even this was a place in the country. It wasn't even in the country now. Like the town hadn't grown to incorporate this thing. This was still in the country.
Hmm.
So when I get there, there's nothing really there. It's just a house and whatever. That his laboratory had been torn down a long time ago and whatever. So, and I just hitchhiked out there. I didn't call anybody. I didn't think about anything. It's just like pure. So I'm standing there and I said, wait a minute. All these small towns have a historical society. So
Yes.
I go back to town, and they got it's in a house. It's like somebody's former house, but they got all these different things: the railroad ties and the buffaloes, and the whole nine. And so I walk in, I go, "Excuse me, I'm looking for stuff about Tesla. He was here, 70 years ago. He did all these experiments. He, knocked out the electricity in the town, whatever." And they're like, "Well, we don't know anything about that, but you just look around. You're free to look around." And so I'm looking around. I'm looking at all the, they got all the watches and all the stuff you got in the arrowheads from the Indians.
Hmm.
And then I turn around and there's a 3 by 4 foot picture. And in the picture is the T-Man himself standing there. And next to him is a 9 foot tall pyramid made out of 3 or 4 inch metal pyramids that are all glued together. So there's hundreds of pyramids that
Hmm.
make this big pyramid. And it's all open, right? And then next to it is a series of pyramids that make an obelisk. And there's Tesla, and that's what he sent the energy to the ground and out to the town, was a pyramid-shaped broadcaster.
Wow.
And I was like, I may be crazy, but I'm still on the right track.
Exactly.
Right. Glad you stayed too, brother.
Oh, hey.
You taught me a lot, Bob. You know that.
Well, see, once again, you know, I've been struck by lightning 3 times. And I tend to take my mission a little bit more seriously.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't think you meant that literally.
The third time it happened, I went, "Oh my God," like this, and all my eyebrows, all my hair just came. It was like the perfect trim, bro.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, and so it was literally after the third time that I decided that I needed to start making pyramids out of the clear blue. Right? It wasn't even like I'm gonna make this much money. It was just like, let's see who we meet and what happens.
Right.
You know, and I hadn't invented all the crystal stuff yet. None of that. None of that. No, like that was only a year before that. And if you told me then I was going to be inventing stuff, I would have said, "I'll bet you a year's salary I'm not going to be anything." So, okay. The joke is always on the person who thinks they're the prankster.
That's right. That's right. Okay. All right, guys. We get ready to end this show. Please share. This is some valuable information, you guys. And of course, if you need to watch it again and again, just to make sure you grasp the information, then please do so. Lester, Yusiko, I want to say thank you guys for coming on the channel and sharing the information. I'm so grateful to have you both.
All right. Peace and love. Thank you, Bob.
It was my privilege. Thank you, Brother CQ, for connecting us. And thank you, Miss Bliss, for just being the eternal crystal that you are.
I appreciate you. You know that, sister. Thank you.
Yes.
Peace and
Thank
love.
you, guys. All right, guys. Have a good night. Love you.
You too. Peace.
All right. Peace.